Happy Sabbath, all.
Happy Sabbath.
The reading for today is from the book of Proverbs, and it is the 3rd chapter and the 5th and 6th verse. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Amen.
Morning. Happy Sabbath, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you so much, Miss Jean, for doing that. I was talking to Miss Jean this morning, and she was saying how, she pretty much already knew that verse. So she was already with the program. So I'm so thankful that she was able to do that for us. Let me go ahead and start the screen here so we can get some slides going. I'm happy to see everyone here. It seems like a couple weeks since I've seen you all. So I'm just glad that you're all here and I'm able to see you all. And I'm pretty stoked that we also have 2 pilots also in the house. We have 2 back here. One's a certified flight instructor too. So I'm pretty excited about that. I think you're both going to like the sermon. So let's go ahead and start with a quick word of prayer. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for this Sabbath. I hope that you give me strength to speak to these people, give your word. Give me strength, give me encouragement, and may we all learn more a little about you and about how to trust you. In your name, amen. So let's start with a quick little story here. Story starts in 1755, the French and Indian War. In this particular, I want to focus on a particular young officer around in his 20s, give or take. He's a young officer fighting for the British in the Virginia, or I guess in this case it would be a territory of the British. And as a young officer, he was fighting through the lines, and this battle is getting worse progressively. A horse got shot from underneath him, then a second horse got shot from underneath him, and then before you knew it, he realized the remaining officers left in the battle. And he soon realized battle. At the end of the battle, he goes back to his commander, and everything's starting to calm down. And he takes off his cover, he takes off his hat, and he realizes that there's a musket hole right through the hat, but his head was unscathed. Then he takes off his jacket. When he takes off his jacket, he looks at it, and I kid you not, according to history books, there's 3 musket holes through his, and he's unscathed. Now, this particular man, God had a special purpose for this guy. Not only did God bring him back from this battle, but God ultimately gave him strength and was able to come back to how the British operated. This particular man I'm talking about is George Washington. Before he fought for the colonial army to defeat the British, he actually were fighting with officers with the British. But God helped him. He helped bring him back so that way he knew how the British operated and that he could help defeat the British to get them out of the country so we could have our religious freedoms. Washington had learned many important command principles from the British officers. He knew his enemy, and he led the Continental Army to victory through that knowledge. He did not let the enemy fool him. Remember that. George Washington did not let the enemy fool him because he knew how the enemy operated. Now, let's put a little pinhole in this part about George Washington. Let's skip back a little bit. We're going to skip back to the Sea of Galilee. The Sea of Galilee, I kind of imagine the Sea of Galilee a little bit like Lake Michigan. I know a lot of you from Michigan can kind of picture that a little bit. Picture a nice calm day. And the Sea of Galilee is also a freshwater lake out in the Middle East. So go ahead and get ready. Turn to Matthew 13:1-9. That's Matthew 13:1. We'll start there. Now Jesus, he's starting to preach, to talk about parables, and he comes out to Sea of Galilee. So we'll start here, verse 1 of chapter 13. On the same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat by the sea. Then a great multitude were gathered together to him, so that he got into a boat and sat, and the whole multitude stood on the shore. You know, I kind of imagine this. Jesus, he's sitting there, he's trying to preach, and then all of a sudden a big multitude gathers. And as they gather, he's like, okay, well, Peter, I got to get in this boat, so that way these people can hear me and see me. So he gets out in the boat, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm out in the lake, and it's there, and I can look out, and I hear just a couple yards away, even though it's a long distance, I can actually hear quite a bit what they're saying. And so I think the same is here true with Jesus as he's out in the water. That's why he got on the water. It's like in those days kind of a auditorium for him, so that way as he spoke, those people over there, out there in the distance, could hear him preach these very important parables that he's trying to say. Then he spoke many things to them, this is verse 3, in parables, saying, Behold, a sower went out to sow. All right, so I'm getting pretty excited here because we're starting to get into parables here. Now this particular, what I'm going to be talking about, it's going to be a bit of a parable, so hopefully you can keep up, but it's going to be a parable in the fact of how particular things work. As some of you may or may not know, I'm a mechanic, and so I get very curious about how things work, and so I'm going to try to use a parable to explain how things work in order to explain God's principle. So I'm super excited here that Jesus is talking in parables. So we continue here, parables, and then he talks about the sower, just basically someone who plants seeds. Okay, we're here in 13:4. And as he sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside, and birds came and devoured them. Some fell on stony places, where they did not have much earth, and they immediately sprung up because they had no depth of earth. But when the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away, and some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprung up and choked them. But others fell on good ground and yielded a crop, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. But they produced. So as we continue down from there, after everything's done and the disciples are had listened to Jesus, they come back to Jesus afterwards like, Jesus, we were listening. I don't know if we really kind of understood what you were saying. Could you kind of tell us what that was all about? And I don't know, I think it's kind of funny because sometimes I'm kind of the same way too. We make fun of the disciples all the time for doing this, but sometimes I'm the same way too. It's like, Jesus, can you explain that to me? I need a little more confirmation here. I need you to tell me what's really going on. So Jesus talks about why he's talking in parables. In this, in verses 10 through 16 of chapter 13. So he's talking about all this, and then at the end of it, he finally describes what the parable we were just talking about. He finally describes what this parable is about. So we'll restart here in chapter 13:18. Therefore, hear the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand it, then the wicked one comes and snatches away what was sown in his heart. Okay, just remember that there. All right, and we'll just go for these real quick. He who receives seed by the wayside, but he who receives the seed on the stony place, this is he who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. Yet he has no root in himself, but endures only for a while. For when tribulation or persecution arises because of the word, immediately he stumbles. Now he who receives seed among the thorns is he who hears the word, and the cares of this world and the deceitfulness of the riches choke the word and become unfruitful. Okay, but listen here in 23. But he who receives seed on good ground is he who hears the word and understands it, who indeed bears fruit and produces some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. Let's go back to that quick verse over here in Matthew 13:19. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand it, then the wicked one comes and snatches away what was sown in his heart. The wicked one, as Jesus just described, being the devil. So we have to be careful about the devil snatching our seed. Another example of this is in 1 Peter 5:8 and 9. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Resist him steadfast in the faith, knowing that some sufferings are experienced by your brotherhood in the world. The same sufferings are experienced by your brotherhood in the world. So, the question, how do we stay vigilant and keep Satan from leading us astray? How do we keep him from snatching our seed and keeping us from producing good fruit? Well, with that said, let's start with another story. We're going to talk about instruments. No, not these instruments, these instruments. So I'm super excited. We have two pilots, CFI and another pilot back there. So, but to explain for the rest of you, basically what instruments are basically a piece of instrument to tell you what you're doing and how the airplane's flying. You see, problem is when you're flying, whether you're above clouds, in the clouds, or it's dark out, a lot of the times when you're in clouds, you'll be able to tell what's from up, from down, from right side up. You're churning to the right, to the left, up, down. So it's very important that these pilots have these instruments. And as a pilot, you start to learn to trust in your instruments to get you back to where you need to go. I'll just give you a quick rundown here about how some of these instruments work and now that you kind of know why we need them, in order to keep from getting disoriented. So the first instrument I want to talk about is a compass. Now we all know what a compass does. However, with the aviation, it's slightly different. This particular aviation compass, you see, a compass keeps you going north, east, west, south, you name it. This particular compass, if you don't follow it correctly, when you turn, it actually turns in the opposite direction that you think you're turning to. You're turning east, west, or south. So it's very important that you know how to use this instrument in order to get back home. Another instrument I want to talk about is attitude indicator. An attitude indicator, this is the device I was talking about that keeps you from knowing whether you're going upside down, left, right, or whether you're in a dive or what's going on in the middle of a cloud. This keeps you from turning upside down and can save your life when you're in the clouds. Basically, the way it works is it has this big flywheel, and it has multiple weights. And as it spins, that centrifugal force, those weights at the end, that centrifugal force comes out and keeps it level with the horizon, if it's set at the horizon. In order to make this principle a little more better for you, I took off a tire off the front of my bike in order to give you a better illustration. Okay, so a normal gyro, so just imagine this is a gyro. Now imagine my hand as the airplane, and as you're flying along, you can do this. So as you can see, nothing's really happening here. It's just we're not able to indicate where our horizon is. So imagine our tire as the horizon. However, if we spin this up, oh, hold on, we'll try that one more time. So our gyro starts to spin up in our airplane. What the gyro does, now that it's set with the horizon, we can, as you can see, it will stay centered with the horizon as we're flying along. So as it does that, our airplane will fly left and right, and we'll be able to tell where horizon is thanks to our gyro here. And gyros are actually really cool. You can do different things with them. You can keep it on the edge like this, stuff like that, like you normally couldn't do since you have that weight there. So these things are really helpful to help know what's going on. With the compass, it will show you where you're going, but you have to know how to use it. And with the gyro, there's forces in play to help you know where you're going, and whether you're upside down or left or right. So it's very important for a pilot to trust their instruments. A quick story. I'll give you a quick story here of a crew who did not trust their instruments. It's the story of the Lady Be Good. World War II bomber during World War II, and they were based out in North Africa. And they did a bombing run to Italy. So they're based in North Africa. They flew over to Italy, and as they were flying, they flew over their bombing run, and then they set a timer. And as they set the timer, they fly over back to their base in North Africa. Now, it's the middle of the night, and they're flying through, and all of a sudden, their instrument, we're flying over. They're using a radio. It uses radio, and the beacon at the airport is telling them that, according to our instrument, we're supposed to land now. But then, unbeknownst to them, they set that timer. We trust our own timer here. We made this timer, back when we were over here, and we're now about to land here. And according to our timer, we shouldn't be over the base. We still have 2 hours until we make it there. So even though their instrument tells them that they are supposed to land, they continue on North African desert because they did not trust their instrument. And little did they know, in fact, that they were actually, that the instrument was actually correctly, that they were actually indeed above their airfield when, in fact, they thought they weren't. And so they continued to fly 2 hours, ignoring their instrument. And then before they knew it, they realized they made a horrible mistake. That they were indeed actually 2 hours south of their base, and they ended up bailing out and crashing the airplane. Unfortunately, the crew was lost because they didn't trust their instrument. A lot of times, we're kind of the same way. We refuse. God might be telling us to do something. We refuse to trust in our instrument, trust in Him, trust in the Bible. In Proverbs 3 and 5, as Miss Jean just told you, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and your own way to Him, and He shall direct your paths. Trust in the Lord. Trust in your instrument. Don't let yourself be deceived. Don't let Satan come and snatch you. That's when you have to trust in your instrument to get you back home. In conclusion, don't let the devil snatch you like a crow or a roaring lion. There are so many people out there that do not know how the devil deceives them. However, through our own compass, the Bible, we can trust in the Lord to get us home.
Amen.
It's that simple. Trust in God to get you back home. Don't be the crew that loses their way because they didn't trust in their instrument. let's go ahead and sing hymn 524. Give us strength to trust you more and more every day. May we not rely on our own compass, but rely on yours to get us home and to trust into you. In your name, amen. Don't forget that this next 2 weeks will be a camp meeting, so I don't believe anyone will really be here. So I hope you go out and enjoy camp meeting, and if you don't, go visit another church or do something fun. Reed City, yeah. Or go out and go outside and enjoy God's nature. So, thank you so much for letting me preach. Sabbath.
Good job, Jay. Good job.